Okay, Brendan, this is now on the CNN website. So it's sort of watered down, but it's very simple. So I thought it was worthwhile showing you both sides, according to CNN.
You need to know about trade. Are TPP and TPA. First up, the TPP, or Trans-Pacific Partnership. Sounds boring, and it's incredibly complicated, but get used to it. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a trade deal that encompasses 40% of the world's economy. There are 12 of them total participating in the deal, but just as important as those 12 is the one that's not.
China, our goal with China, we were talking about China to China inside of China. It was China. I'd much rather have our problems than China's problems.
The deal is all about setting the rules on labor, the environment, economics around that Asia-Pacific region in a way that lets the United States have a lot to do with it and sort of prevents China from setting lower standards. Here's how complicated this deal is. On the pro-TPP side, we've got big business, congressional Republicans, and President Obama.
TPP is good for American businesses and American workers. We will make the case on the merits as to why it will open up markets for American goods, American exports, and create American jobs.
Opposing the deal is this sort of odd populist alliance between labor unions and Tea Partiers, as well as groups like Doctors Without Borders, and it's all led by liberal firebrand Senator Elizabeth Warren.
All right, no more secret trade deals. Are you ready to fight? No more secret deals.
The deal isn't even done yet, but already the debate is raging. On the pro side, we've got businesses that are arguing this would be a chance for the United States to sell more cars and food into Japan, to import cheaper shirts and shoes from Vietnam, to protect the pharmaceutical drug industry from cheaper generic knockoffs in countries that can't afford these medicines. But the opponents argue that this would put American manufacturing jobs at risk. And they also worry about the impact on countries like Malaysia, where they wouldn't be able to make these generic drugs. The real pearl in this deal for American companies is Japan. The United States doesn't have a trade deal with Japan yet, and this is an opportunity to get one. But Japan has a lot of small family farmers who don't want to be put at risk of competing against American agricultural giants. That's just one example of the really tricky political situations that exist in all 12 countries, each hesitant to take these major political risks without knowing that the United States is definitely on board with them. And that's where TPA comes in. TPA is Trade Promotion Authority. It's a bill that says President Obama can submit a trade deal, like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, to Congress for an up or down vote with limited debate. And here's the key: no amendments.
There you go.
Congress can't change it, can't muck it up at the last minute, can't force countries other than the United States to reevaluate the entire situation and whether they still want to be on board with the deal. So that's why this issue isn't going away anytime soon.
People don't have to.
So that was it. You know, don't turn the cameras, please. That was it very simply. Please notice that the Republicans are for it. That's the establishment Republicans. The Tea Parties are against it. And there's your civil war in the Republican Party. The Republican establishment and the Democrats are in agreement. He didn't even mention the Democrats. But actually, there were a lot of Democrats that were against it, but apparently Obama won them over. So what I think we'll play next is one of the Alex Jones shows where he's interviewing people that can give us more information. And the one thing that I didn't remember to tell you at the beginning was that there are heavy jail penalties. I mean, they're letting the murderers out on the street and the rapists out on the street, and they're talking about 20-year sentences for putting something up on the internet that shouldn't be there. So.
So studying the globalists and finding them, really. Now, shifting gears, ladies and gentlemen, we have the Pope coming out. We now learned a secret meeting earlier this week, according to the Vatican spokesman, Federico Lombardi, in the Associated Press, AFP, you name it. Pope warns against conspiracy theories of Vatican skullduggery. And the Pope reportedly said, and they have quotes, that it's a conspiracy theory that he wants world government, carbon taxes, that there's a move towards the left. Of course, that's all admitted. That's all admitted. So basically, thinking is a conspiracy theory. Now, remember 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when the John Birch Society, founded by Mr. Welsh, laid out basically everything that we've now seen unfold. You can see speeches he gave in the 50s that are like revelations or something coming true. I mean, it's true providence that we had all these people inside the establishment, wealthy people mainly, who didn't want to sell America out, who were let in on the plan, military officers, you name it, were the people that led the fight against what's happened, Barry Goldwater and many others. And then we saw, of course, people like Ron Paul in the second and third waves, myself in the fourth wave. Now we see fifth and sixth wave people waking up to globalism. But now we've gone from denials of world government to world government being openly admitted across the board. So we have all of that taking place. And we have the TPP being, well, for a decade being prepared, for 2 years being ratified, finally done on Monday, finally completed, and it takes WikiLeaks to release one section, the intellectual property rights chapter that was passed on the 5th that we still can't see. So they've now leaked it. We've been doing a quick analysis this morning. We have an article going up in mere minutes by Kit Daniels. The TPP is just a global government takeover, which they now admit. Now we're about to, because of TV satellites, have to stop skipping breaks by next week. I'm not going to do this anymore. These are network breaks, so I can skip them. They're not local breaks, but I'm going to skip this one so that Jasper has more time because this is so important. William F. Jasper, of course, his parents joined the John Birch Society back in the 60s. He didn't believe it. They were, his dad was a World War II vet. He respected him, but he still just couldn't believe that there was this global government takeover, that Vietnam was wrong from a conservative perspective. He tried to disprove his parents, found out they were wrong, got involved in the John Birch Society, and now for, I think, it's a couple decades, he's been the editor of the New American Magazine, reaching millions of people. They've made countless documentaries. They've traveled the country. They have youth organizations in the summer that educate the children about what's happening and about the Constitution. My only criticism is they haven't been hardcore and aggressive enough, but that's okay. Their mission is just educational. Then it's up to the rest of us to be the shock troops. I've never been a part of the John Birch Society. My dad was involved in some of their activities when he was in high school. So obviously I've been heavily influenced by it. And he joins us now. I mean, William, we've gone from world government, them saying it's not coming, it doesn't exist, to exactly what the John Birch Society said 50 years ago, coming true. This has really got to be a paradox for the establishment and how they're trying to navigate it, but they seem to be going back to the tried and trusted conspiracy theory label. I mean, Matt Drudge comes on and criticizes the TPP, and Esquire and countless other publications say he's a conspiracy theory. So this really is the new way to say heretic, isn't it? I mean, this label, and then I want to get into TPP with you.
Yeah, well, it's quite amazing that now, after all these decades and years of denial, we are seeing exactly what we had warned coming true. The move towards world government is going at a rapid gallop. We see now with the TPP, something we've been writing about and warning about for the last couple of years. It seemed to have gone away for a few months. It was not being headline news for a while, but we warned that, hey, there's still activity going on it, and this is going to be coming up back very soon. And of course, Monday, it pops out, voila. It has been adopted by the leaders of the TPP countries, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And this is a giant step toward world government. This is taking NAFTA global in the Pacific direction. And as you know, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, the TTIP, is the companion treaty that is scheduled to take us global on the Atlantic side. And so joining the United States with the European Union. And in the midst of all of that, we see another very important part of this whole scheme toward world government in the so-called refugee crisis, which is really a migrant crisis. It includes refugees streaming out of the war-torn countries of the Middle East, which the United States and the European Union countries under UN auspices have been obliterating and creating this huge migrant crisis. And now we're told as a result, Europe has to take in millions of refugees, and the United States as well. We have to take our share. And of course, this is part of the whole destabilization process. If you're going to deconstruct the current world and create your new world order, you have to create the kind of stability that will give a rational explanation for what you're doing. And so that's what we see happening now with all of this migrant push.
That's right. It's 21st century warfare, and I want you to walk through all this. But in the past, if a company had or a governmental head screwed up big, they had to resign. Now when they, quote, screw up on 9/11 or screw up with the derivatives, they get rewarded with more power. So they bomb the countries, they bring in ISIS, they bring in Al-Qaeda, they bring in the refugees, a bunch of them, military people kicked out of Syria, and then now it's our job to pay for them and to take down our crosses and be politically correct. I mean, we really see the left in globalism teamed up with radical Islam. How do you see those things intersecting?
Well, they intersect in many different places. And the current issue of the New American Magazine, we have a package of cover stories by myself and my colleague Alex Newman, whom you've had on your show a number of times, going through both the whole genesis of this with the current wars that are ongoing in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and how the administration and the globalists behind it, specifically the Council on Foreign Relations and other related organizations that have been planning these wars for a number of years, they have actually planned to create the refugee crisis and then to exploit it. They know when they obliterate whole cities and regions and nations and make people homeless and terrorize them, that they're going to try to go somewhere. And then they're there with the United Nations High Commission for Refugees to say, it's time to go to Europe. We have all this set out for you there. You'll be welcomed there. And of course, when you're in those kind of conditions, I mean, we can feel compassion for those people, and we should, and I do.
But it's part of a larger public program. They call it a conspiracy theory, but it's completely naked. They admit they're doing this to have a radical transformation and a divide and conquer strategy.
Well, and we have many admissions, as we pointed out, I'm sure you have as well, from Vice President Joe Biden, from the heads of the military branches, that we are indeed arming and have been arming and aiding and training the top ISIS and Al-Qaeda leaders and the Al-Nusra Front and other groups that they were supposed to be moderates, and they've turned out to, guess what? They're terrorists as well. So we created the jihadi network. We have created the disruption of all the countries of the Middle East with our regime change program, our Arab Spring. And now the results, which we predicted, we said there would be millions of refugees from this, and that's exactly where we are today. We have millions of refugees. The United Nations says that there are over 50 million refugees now and over 1 billion displaced persons. Where are they all going to go? Can we accept all of them? Can Europe accept all of them without completely destroying the nation?
And those are staggering numbers. And as we know from leaked summaries of the 2832, it varies the different sections because they've negotiated this in secret for years. The John Birch Society wrote decades ago how they would create regional boards like the EU, call them trade deals, and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's a dictatorship. Well, look at the EU now saying the answer to the migrant crisis and the problems and the derivatives is a super EU and getting rid of any national sovereignty. And even sports teams can't be German or French or Spanish or Portuguese or British. They've got to be like named after, you know, superheroes or something, because even nationalism in a team is bad and xenophobic. I mean, this is such a cult of political correctness they've created. Then they destroy regions, fold them in to super regions with Marshall plans, in their own words, modern Marshall plans of trillions they give themselves to go into these regions over the decades and, quote, repair the problem. I mean, you can really see how they've got to implode the world to, on its ashes, build this planetary tyranny.
And the two are the TPP and the refugee crisis are intimately connected, and a very good indication of that.
Borders is in there, as you know. It's all in there.
Absolutely, and if you look at at a number of the key people that are involved in both of these operations, one really stands out just recently, and that is Peter Sutherland.
Oh,
Peter
yeah.
Sutherland is international chairman of Goldman Sachs, Bilderberg, Trilateral Commission, former EU commissioner. He's the one who helped bring about the whole EU amalgamation. Recently, on September 30th, he was on a global experts program, a special event by the Council on Foreign Relations. You can go on the CFR.org now and watch this. September 30th, Peter Sutherland, Mr. Internationalist, Mr. Globalist. And he was the main speaker at the event. And he was pointing out that this recent refugee crisis it was necessary that we begin compulsory quotas. Compulsory quotas are what now the EU is demanding. Each of its member states has to take X number of refugees. And if you read the fine print of their decision at the European Council, they say, but this can be adjusted upwards. So in other words, this initial 120,000 that they said would be taken from Italy and Greece, they said, well, that can be jumped upwards at any point. And now of course, Germany just overnight then went from saying they were going to take 800,000 to now 1.5 million. So
and then it'll be 3 million, and then 5 million, and then 10 million, and then checkmate. They can all vote to enslave the Germans.
Sure. I mean, so we see it was Peter Sutherland also who last year joined with the other EU heavyweight globalists in attacking Switzerland and blackmailing and terrorizing Switzerland when little Switzerland said, hey, we don't want any more refugees. We're not going to take any more Muslims from the Middle East. And so all of the international establishment came down on Switzerland, as they're doing now against Hungary, against Lithuania.
That's right. Stay there. One of the greatest minds when it comes to studying the globalists and fighting them, William F. Jasper, is our guest. Simply put, we are facing private corporate world government that is usurping control of the planet through incremental private and public partnerships that is basically classical racketeering and fraud. And they make money and consolidate power at each phase of the takeover. And they implement and exacerbate crises. They write white papers on how they do it, how they fund all sides of a conflict, and then basically get the West to bail the country out or the region out, but you're not bailing them out. You're giving money to the globalists and backing it up with your taxes and your military so they can then issue terms to the conquered country or region. And by the way, outside the U.S., this is all well known. One big trick of the globalists is, though, they act like it's an American empire. And the Council on Foreign Relations, the PNAC group, the big think tanks say that so that we get the blame for the corrupt world government while we ourselves are being set up for a fall, being put under debt, being deindustrialized, being demonized, being attacked. Because they're going to bring us out of the dollar age. The question is when. We are being set up big time. So I want to get William F. Jasper's take on where TPP goes, how we fight this, where he sees Russia in all this, and more. Then our London correspondent, Infowars.com editor-at-large, Paul Joseph Watson, will be joining us in studio. Fourth hour will be hosted by David Knight, and we'll be covering Obama as he arrives in Roseburg to feed on the energy of the dead, even though the families have all said don't do it. I was corrected. It's not 7 of the 10 families. All the families are going to come out. They were targeted because they were Christians and conservatives and said, please don't use our dead family for your move to disarm us. Please don't do it. But the vampire in chief is going to be arriving and squatting on them and doing that, flying in on his carrion helicopter. TheNewAmerican.com is the news site. It's excellent. You can also subscribe, get the magazines, get them in bulk to wake up friends and family. One of the most effective ways to wake people up is doing that. You can also sign up to get the daily headlines emailed to you. They're at the top of TheNewAmerican.com. Now, shifting gears before I go back to our guest, we are offering some of the biggest specials ever. We always have specials of the week, but usually just one special. We have free shipping and 10% off on water filtration systems at InfoWarsStore.com. Well, this dose, you can look it up yourself, of saw palmetto are $25, $30, $35. This is the standard, 3 weeks. Super female, a very small amount came in that had done an overrun of about $500 down. That's back in stock at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 88. It's unheard of to have a 4.5 or over that when you have thousands of reviews total. Some of the products have thousands of reviews themselves total. So check it out for yourself. But also now you're funding the very, he's been fighting them for over 30 years, his parents for 50 plus years. But is it not surreal? I want to go back to the big picture here and then get back into the minutia and where this is all going. To get the Clinton Library documents, as Joseph Farah at the Western Journalism Center did last year, and it's them in the early 90s, mentioning the John Birch Society, mentioning Western Journalism Center, mentioning what if there becomes a new media to challenge us, we've got to instruct all the controlled media to call them conspiracy theorists and kooks and just deny everything exists, deny. We have their own battle plan, and now they still just bleed it out and say, there's no secret treaties, there's no world government. Raising the debt limit doesn't raise the debt limit. Gun crime's up, even though it's not. And their poll numbers go down and down. People, I think, more and more who are thinking really get what's happening. I mean, the success of this show, Drudge showing up Tuesday, and endorsing us publicly. That was a private relationship before that. So many others in law enforcement, federal and state and local, want me to know that they're aware of what's happening and are totally freaked out. The military is incredibly awake right now. I mean, I really think, starting with the John Birch Society, starting with people like Barry Goldwater, Mr. Welsh, we're not giving credit here. They wouldn't want credit. They want to defeat the tyranny. But if you read the quotes by Barry Goldwater in the 60s about global government and the Trilateral Commission and CFR, and later in the 70s, it's 100% on. We need to let folks understand, because what I found really wakes them up. You guys put a whole issue out, see, we told you so. And John Birch Society predicts basically everything, and just show the thousands of quotes by you, by patriots, by you 30 years ago, and everybody else accurately charting the future of what we faced, so people will now listen to the next chapter. And that's what I want to get to next. What are they going to do next? What's their end game if we don't stop them?
Well, you put your finger on some very important points. And here's what's important for people to understand. And the key principle on here is power, and concentrating power is it always a threat to liberty? When you concentrate power at greater and greater levels and you get out to the global level, then you're talking about a huge threat to human liberty. Centralizing power, concentrating power, internationalizing power on a global scale is a very bad idea if you believe in liberty. And the folks that are promoting this, that have been for over the last 50 years especially, even longer, going back nearly a century, the founding of the globalist movements in the Council on Foreign Relations and the other international circles like that, they know what they're doing. They believe in concentrating power and concentrating it more. The more they can concentrate it, the more they can empower their little oligopoly. And that oligarchy then will have political, economic, social, media control throughout the whole planet. And that's where we are rapidly approaching right now. We had a special issue of the New American just a little over a year ago called The United Nations on the Brink of Becoming a World Government. And in that, we survey, we have a map of the world, show all of the different adjuncts of the United Nations, the whole United Nations bureaucracy all over the world, economic, political, social, and most Americans are unaware that the United Nations has grown to such huge dimensions and that it has offices and regional and national and global buildings and headquarters all over the world with all of its multitude of agencies. And we show on the map, and it's an interactive map, all of these different agencies. I've been to most of them myself. I've been a correspondent at the United Nations for many years, for nearly 30 years. And it's quite amazing when you, particularly when you go to a third world country and you see everywhere the United Nations. You see United Nations trucks, United Nations tents, United Nations buildings. They are the ones who are in control of all of the refugee centers. They are the ones who are in control of all of the bailout funds through the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank of the United Nations. And that is one of the areas that we focused on a lot in the past few years, which is the international monetary control.
Sure, and now a few weeks ago,
national currency.
And I want to get to that because the world government's here, but they're not even hiding it anymore. So shouldn't that give us an advantage to force Congress to do something? But what about the Attorney General and the Vice President 2 weeks ago meeting with the UN and saying we're going to basically have the UN come in, take control of our cities police programs, to monitor them and to battle domestic extremists? I mean, I read the text earlier this week of what she had to say. It is so naked, William.
Well, and this is one of many areas. This has been coming for a number of years. We've been reporting on it, that every time there is a riot or a race incident, there are reports made to the United Nations. The same thing now with the refugee crisis. Those have to all come under United Nations control, United Nations monitoring, and according to the this next week, this coming week, in Geneva, Switzerland, the United Nations is going to be having the World Humanitarian Summit. And there they are going to lay down the basis for normative international law regarding refugees and humanitarian concerns, in which our government, our State Department, representing the Obama administration and allegedly the American people, is going to go on record in favor of moving in toward this international law. Well, if you have international law, you have to have international enforcement, international monitoring. And of course, that means, again, more transfer of power to the United Nations and its various agencies, which is then, the boldest and most bald-faced grab for power is then coming up at the end of November and early December in Paris, France, where the United Nations is holding its climate change summit, which is, of course, calling for international controls over all of the air that we breathe, over all human activities. Everything will have to be audited if you're going to build a house. build a machine, if you're going to mow your yard.
It's Agenda 21 on steroids. Have you ever seen them moving in unison this bold, A, and then B, are they accelerating their program because they're behind schedule, or are they really doing well?
Well, they're behind schedule on almost every front. We've reported over the decades on a number of the leading timelines that they've put forward, and on most of them they're years or even decades behind. However, they have been patiently laying the groundwork, and so now they have been able to build up all of these various UN agencies. They've been able to acquire the funds through the United States and the European Union primarily, delivering up most of the funding for this. And so with legions of bureaucrats in the UN bureaucracy, and with all the NGOs that are funded by tax-exempt foundations and government grants, they now have a veritable army which works in concert with the establishment news media to push these things forward. And so that when a crisis, a planned crisis like the refugee horde begins, then they have all of their activists, their NGOs, their think tanks, their media.
Creating a fake consensus.
Right, so they can come up with a fake consensus. They can stampede people with a concern over humanitarian issues or things of that nature.
And I agree with you, they're 10, 15 years behind, but now they're trying to accelerate their program, and you can see how they have the cake and eat it too. Flood Europe, flood the U.S. with millions of refugees, destabilize, get more welfare, more government, more regulation domestically, more police state to counter all the ISIS people they admit have come in. Then that's turned around against the indigenous populations or the populations that are more constitutional based. But then they'll hold Europe and the West hostage for hundreds of billions, as they're now saying, to fix the refugee crisis and stop the flow. So they're going to basically extort us now with the third world they control as the world financial collapse accelerates to give in to world government and world taxation, or they'll hit us with billions of people. I mean, you can really see.
Well, I mean, yes, they're going to try to shove as many in here over the next few months as possible. And what they're telling the United States is, oh, it's only a few thousand. But that's what they were telling the Europeans over the last several years. What they plan to do is put seed communities, seed migrants, and as we've exposed in the New American, we don't even know who these people are that are coming here. Most of them do not have identification. They have not been vetted. The FBI, the DMI say that they cannot vet these people. There's no way that they can tell if they're terrorists or not, or even where they're from, what nation they're from. So once they get a few in here, though, they already have the migration refugee network built up with hundreds, literally over 300 groups that are getting money from the federal government. Almost all of it from the federal government or from tax-exempt foundations like Soros, Ford, Rockefeller. These various groups like the International Rescue Committee, World Relief, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, Lutheran World Relief Services. These groups are raking in tons of money. They have a financial incentive, as well as many of them an ideological incentive, to bring more and more Muslims to the United States. I'm sure you've covered, as we have, the fact that the Christians who are being persecuted in the Middle East, the ones who are really being martyred there, are being discriminated against. We have an active policy in our State Department to make it difficult for Christians who really have nowhere else to go.
That's right. Tell us about that when we come back. Absolutely. We'll be back. Stay with us. William F. Jasper is our guest. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com.
So this isn't really TPP.
William F. Jasper is with us 5 minutes to the next hour. Then we've got Paul Joseph Watson in studio, our reporters on the ground as Obama prepares to land in the next hour in Roseburg, Oregon. If you're a new listener, you wonder what's going on. The British Empire, this is a simplified 60-second history. We'll get Jasper's take on it. He's a bigger expert than I am, but this is how it worked. The British Empire, run by private corporations, had taken over probably 40% of the world. The sun never set on it. Some estimates are 50%. You have the Dutch Empire and the French Empire and the Spanish Empire and the Russian Empire, and the American Empire was growing by then as well after the Spanish-American War. It's really when it became an empire. That's admitted by historians. And a lot of the robber barons wanted a corporate global empire by buying off presidents, buying off kings, buying off other companies, consolidating those, using mercenaries in skirmishes with locals, indigenous that didn't want to go along with it. And after World War I, they had League of Nations, and they argued, let's have this big combine, never have a war again. But then, of course, that went into World War II. And the argument is, let's have global government run by corporations that'll stop these wars. But they're the very groups stirring up the wars so they can then point for global government to stop the wars. And they're the ones 9 times out of 10 destabilizing, starting the crisis, or exacerbating it. And so we don't face foreign armies, foreign tanks now. That's only at one small level of it. We face economic warfare. We face a takeover. And it's a cultural takeover as well. And it doesn't give any quarter. And it's a world where the social compact is out the door and where they want to purposely make people poor and highly controlled. Cloud and pivot is only one aspect of that. We got 3 minutes left in this segment, 5-minute segment after that. I'm going to try to give you the floor in these little segments, William F. Jasper. But I think really getting big picture for people is the key here. And now that it's all admitted, and I just can't believe how incredibly accurate you guys got it 30, 40 years ago. I think we really have to celebrate the fact that we, the conspiracy theorists, we, the constitutionalists, really did get it right, and that we are the real opposition to this planetary tyranny. And I think people can wake up pretty quick to that and then form the proper opposition.
Well, yes, I mean, the record is there, and we have huge archives of stories on our website that go back 30, 40, 50 years. And so people can judge for themselves. They can say, gee, they were right 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they've called it. This is, they said this is what was going to happen if these things were allowed to take place, and that is exactly what has happened. And the world doesn't look so good compared to what it could be, what it should be. So I think people, we're at a very crucial point in our history now. And if people can tear themselves away from the establishment media and away from their Oprah Winfrey or their Kardashians or whatever they watch or whatever other diversions are keeping them from looking at the hard truths, we can have a massive wake up very quickly, and people can put the pieces together, because there have been some very good people over a long period of time that have been sorting all this out and putting it together for them. And so really now the information is all there. It's kind of complex, it's very large, but if you boil it down to the key principles, which are, if you want to maintain liberty, then you have to have separations of power. You have to keep as much power local as possible. You have to keep national sovereignty. And all of the forces at work that we're talking about today, that we're discussing, are working in the opposite direction, to take away local control, to take away national sovereignty, to concentrate us in a global government, a global economy. And that's what we have to look at as the...
I agree. Stay there, do 5 more minutes with us, and we'll let you go. William F. Jasper, 3rd hour coming up. Now we have a 4th hour as well. Stay with us. Infowars.com is the free streams. Spread them with people. Share them with people. And share your local affiliate streams as well. Coming up, I've got a video that's really a paradox. You got a video where the cop lets the guy shoot him and still doesn't shoot him and says, please don't make us kill you. If you pull a gun on me, I'm going to shoot you. And then...
Okay, that wasn't really TPP. But I think, well, we'll take questions and comments, and then we'll take a break, because it's really hard listening to all of this stuff. So we'll take a 15-minute break, maybe get some fresh air. And I do have an Alex Jones show with people actually talking about TPP, so I thought that this was it, but apparently it wasn't. But of course, this is related. Any questions or comments on this? Anyway, okay, so let's take a good 15-minute break, go get some fresh air, wake up, and I'll find the right video on TPP.
Up here, YouTube.
No.
It's still recording.